This is IAQ Radio, Indoor Air Quality Radio, the voice of the indoor air quality industry, with your hosts, Radio Joe Hughes and the Z-Man, Cliff Zlotnick. And now, Radio Joe Hughes.
Good day and welcome to IAQ Radio Plus. This week is episode 594, and we welcome Ivan Turner, Stephen LaVelle, and Kent Riddle. We're going to talk about marketing your restoration company during tough times and beyond. Before we get started, let's make sure we thank our sponsors. They are the reason IAQ Radio continues to be free.
IAQ Radio Association sponsors are the American Conference of Governmental Industrial Hygienists. Learn more at acgih.org. The Cleaning Industry Research Institute. Learn more at ciriscience.org. The Indoor Air Quality Association. Learn more at iaqa.org. AIHA, Healthier Workplaces, a Healthier World. Learn more at aiha.org. And the Restoration Industry Association. Learn more at restorationindustry.org. IAQ Radio industry sponsors are AEML Laboratories. Learn more at aemlinc.com. Particles Plus. Learn more at particlesplus.com. And Healthy Indoors Magazine. Subscriptions available at healthyindoors.com.
And now you can win a cool prize. It's time for the IAQ Radio Trivia question. Be the first to correctly answer. Simply email your answer to czlotnick@cs.com. Or if listening live, just text your answer from your computer. And now, here's the Z-Man with this week's IAQ Radio Trivia question.
Hello, everyone. Congratulations go out to Doug Conan, Aerotech Environmental in Dayton, Ohio, who was first to identify 1944 as the year ACGIH's Threshold Limit Values for Chemical Substances Committee was made a standing committee. The IQ Radio Trivia question for today, Friday, July 24th, 2020, has been sponsored by Ideas, a solution chemistry company providing unique solutions to odor removal, surface cleaning, and decontamination problems. Here is today's IAQ Radio Trivia question. In what year was the first self-help book written? Back to you, Joe.
Thank you, Cliff. Today, one of our first guests is Ivan Turner. He's been in the restoration field for over 25 years. He created Disaster Brigade, an organization that brings veterans into the restoration industry. And he's presently the CEO of Showme Marketing, a consulting firm that shows restoration companies how to get more work in just days. Cliff?
Stephen LaVelle has been a researcher and writer for the restoration industry for more than 12 years, with half a dozen books to his credit, including 197 Ways to Persuade Adjusters, Agents, and others to give you the job, the restoration book, How to Get More Water Damage Jobs, and Get Paid, which actually I wrote the forward for. Stephen says, I ask the most insightful industry leaders for the best secrets. They tell them to me. I include a few ideas of my own, and then we write them down. That's how I create some of the best marketing books in restoration. In the final analysis, I'm just a roving reporter and marketer who knows where to look and what questions to ask.
And Kent Riddle, he's a storyteller. Someone called him the redneck millionaire because he ran a successful franchise for many years that had an annual income in the millions of dollars. And he's got that deep Southern accent that rivals his friends in Nashville. Recently, he sold his franchise for millions more, but he found retirement to be too much work. So he dove back in and created a consulting firm that helps other restoration companies become successful. He teaches with stories, and he promises to share a few today. Welcome, gentlemen. Great to have you on the show. And I think we've got everything up and running. Steve, let's start with you. You kind of are the restoration journalist. You go around the world and you gather stories from people and pull people together to put together these books. Tell us a little bit more about the reason behind your most current book.
Yeah, what happened was this book was a labor of love. we'd written several others in the past, and what I normally do is I get together a cadre of very smart guys in the field, because I'm not all that smart, but I know what to ask. And this time we knew that people were in trouble because of the COVID thing. Not everyone, but most of the contractors I've been talking to were saying, well, we're hurt, we're damaged, we're not making any money here, the phone is not ringing. Some guys even said, we're going to close down. We have nowhere to go with this. And so I said, wait a minute, give me a chance to go find some good news in the industry. Maybe I'll find some ways of getting more jobs. So I started looking all around, and I couldn't find any good news per se. But then I said, okay, there has to be a way to find some technology by which we can get the jobs back, because the jobs had to be out there. I mean, the fire damage and water damage and mold, all the same kind of jobs we had 3 months earlier, were still out there. So I started looking in places where I type in on Google, for example. I say, look, I need some contractors that are busy. And so I just typed in, contractors are busy. And up came some TV interviews. People were doing news shows. And one hostess said, well, how many calls are you getting per day to one of the people on the show? And the guy said, oh, about 500-600. And I thought, wait, what? 500-600 calls? And she said, a day? And he said, yeah. And he said, yeah, they're coming in. And I thought, well, somebody's making some money. So I started following that company. And so the more I looked into him, the more I got interested in what he was doing. I went on, I did Google, I looked at his site, I looked at how he's ranking on Google, and then I saw some other companies around him that were very, very good. And one of them really caught my attention, and this is what I think will surprise you. There was a company that said, ignored all the rules. You know, there are rules out there about what you can't say, we're going to sanitize your business. You can't say we're going to sterilize the building, anything like that. But these folks said, and I quote, we're serious about fighting infectious diseases, and we are a professional virus detection disinfection service. And down below it said, they were saying, we will, here it is, yeah, this is my favorite part. We're here to help you. We provide professional cleaning, disinfection, and viral remediation services, eliminating illness-causing pathogens, including the novel coronaviruses, with up to, and this is the important part, with up to 90 days protection per application for your workplace, facility, or residence. Now, we've been told we can't say anything like that, but these guys who were competing with the guys that were getting 500 or 600 calls a day, and they actually ranked higher than they did in Google. So I kept looking for more evidence, and finally I think I found what it was. It says, we offer a 100% guarantee that our services will provide safe, immediate, and long-term antimicrobial solutions for your facility with up to 90 days protection per application. Well, every other podcast I've been watching said, don't do that. So I wrote to Ed Cross, the restoration lawyer. I said, Ed, what do you think of this? And he wrote back a very terse answer and said, I don't recommend guarantees for anybody. So I said, all right, I'll set that aside. But I thought, wow, there has to be a way to use that kind of knowledge. So we began looking for ways of rewording what they were saying, because really, if you stood there with them and you had your own antimicrobial service, and you said, look, these guys what they're saying is that they can kill germs, bacteria, not viruses, for 90 days. But again, if you say that and the customer's standing there right next to the guy and says, what's your guarantee? Well, our guarantee is that once we walk out the door, there is no guarantee. And so these guys are standing right next to you, and they're saying, we'll give you 190 days or 120 days. So I talked to a company in Canada, and they said, oh, yeah, we've got that stuff. We put it on all the touch points, and it'll kill bacteria for up to 90 days. They're not kidding. Except then they added, unless a cleaning lady comes in and uses Clorox to clean up the place, in which case all bets are off. So I began looking for more and more evidence that people were getting money, and I found it. There are companies out there that are making a fortune right now. In fact, I would go so far as to say that this time in the history of restoration, this is the most abundant time for finding more jobs. And the more I looked, the more I found. But having said that, I think we should let Kent and Ivan tell how they get the jobs. They're actually on the front lines out there.
Okay, and before we do, Steve, Cliff, anything you wanted to add? I mean, I know
Yeah, I do. I just have one technical comment on what Steve said. There are coatings that can be applied as part of the remediation process that don't really kill anything, but what they are is they are biostatic, which means they prevent odor-causing microorganisms, odor-causing fungi, and so on and so forth. So yes, those coatings are available, and I recommend them. I think it's a good idea, especially if you're charging someone a lot of money to do a COVID job. I do think you should provide some sort of long-term protection, and there are biostatic coatings out there that, I think should be used as part of the process. I think you have to be clear that they're not going to kill viruses, but they are going to prevent a lot of other things from growing.
Yeah, that's exactly the point. When these guys say stuff like that, they're fudging the line a little bit because they're counting on the ignorant.
Can you say another question?
I'm sorry. I think Ivan was trying to jump in there, but no, he's muted. All right. Well, I guess the point is not the fact that it does or does not last 90 days, or that once someone touches it again, you're going to have, recontamination. The point is they were using a different approach to market things. And I think that's what we're trying to give people here today, is some ideas on different approaches and ways you've seen people out there approaching these times. But let's jump over to Kent for just a minute. Kent, I wonder if you could talk to people a little bit about some of your tips. You've been around a long time. You've been very successful in the business. What kind of tips are you giving people with respect to marketing today versus, when prior to this COVID mess?
I was thinking about that the other day because I went and buy a franchise that they were absolutely having the best quarter that they had ever had in the history of their business. I went to the back where the boards were. Their job boards were completely full, and they were busier than they said they had ever been. And it began to make me think about the two different approaches between the companies. I believe there's two different types of companies. There's the one that when the market changes, they are adjusting their company to pursue the new opportunities that this new market has presented. And then you have the other type of company, and they're just trying not to lose any of their business. And a prime example of that is when I was in business, the market had a change like that. It was when it went from program driven, the market was program driven, to the one-stop shop type of market. That was a big change, and there were two types of companies. One company, they began immediately bringing construction into their mix. They began to add the services that they need in order to capitalize on all of the opportunities that the new market has presented. The other company that wanted to stay the same, they expanded their area. They said, well, my service area is going to have to grow, being that there's less jobs. And that's what's happening here, I believe. I believe that there's major opportunities in this market that are being presented, and there's two types of approaches. There's one that says that I'm just trying to not lose because of this change, and the other saying I'm looking for the opportunities presented because of this change.
And I assume you're not saying either one's right or wrong. They're both
exactly
good approaches.
they're both good approaches, and you know, each one of them is going to fit the owner, whoever the owner is. If they're willing to look and see the opportunities in that market, they'll capitalize on them. And there are, whether you choose to do COVID, or whether you just choose to capitalize on the market that's here right now, there's more work than there's ever been, and it's out there. It's just being able to see the things that you have to do in order to capture that market.
You know, you said, Steve, you mentioned in our discussions before that franchises, and again here, they're doing very well during this pandemic. But I guess I'm wondering whether they're doing well with, you know, financially, or getting more jobs, or both, because sometimes having more jobs is not necessarily making you more money. I wonder if you could expand on that a little bit. They're very busy. Are they also very profitable?
Oh, they're making a fortune. One of the wonderful things that happened during the research, I had to go to several other consultants and ask them, you know, what are you finding in the field? Is there any money to be made? Well, Gary Arntz, you probably remember him. He works with Jeff Cross, and they have a little outfit called Marketing Zoo. And Gary Arntz was he brought to my attention that the franchises are just cleaning up, and I'm looking through my notes here real quickly to yeah, here it is. Totally Booked University is the one that Jeff Cross and he run, and it says here in this is a quote from him. I want to get it right. ServPro alone, just ServPro alone, is getting 74,000 free organic searches each month, while there are only 30,000 to 40,000 searches for the generic term water damage. So ServPro is getting more hits than the phrase water damage. And these companies are getting more monthly online searches than the words water damage. Then I started looking into how much money they're making. They're really tight-lipped about that. They won't tell us, you know, what the figures are. But there was one fellow on one in the book. I gave a link so you can go check him out for yourself. One guy was just sitting there and he said, "Look, I'm only getting like 30 calls a day, but I'm booked so solidly right now." And he said, "These are not houses, homes. I'm doing it with you know, small companies and large companies. We're using COVID killers of various statures," and he included black light and that sort of thing. But he said, I'm making more money now than I have in the history of my company. And I thought, okay, so that's another one. Mark that one up. Then I found a fellow in Florida he's booked so solidly. I don't know how he's doing it, but he said, "Look, right now I'm working with North Florida State University. I just finished a 2,100 square foot facility. I was just doing the anti-COVID sprays." And he said, "Okay, it doesn't sound like much," but he said, "It only took us 3 hours and we made $5,000 on that one job alone." And then the good news came through for him, and he said, "Well, I just recently got the word from all of the dollar stores. We have them all. We're going to be doing every facility out there." And I asked myself, how did he get all of this? What makes him special? And there wasn't anything special about his company. He just got out there and does what Ivan does. He did what we call going belly to belly. He went out there and talked to individuals and sold his company. And actually, all three of us have found that when you actually can talk to the person who owns the company, that's when you get the more jobs and you get the more money. You ask Ivan about what happened in maybe the hotel and also the mall. I think you'll get an image of what kind of money is out there.
I think we've lost Ivan. I'm not sure.
Oh, no. Okay.
But I'll tell you what I'd like to ask you. You mentioned it in the book, and you mentioned the name Gary Arndt. He contributed some unusual ideas about improving your placement on Google. And I think that's something, I get sick of these calls from Google, people saying they're going to get my Google listing, #1 in the search boxes and all that. And it gets so frustrating at times, you just kind of throw up your hands. What kind of tip did Gary give that would be something that just any restoration company could use to help at least bring their search results a little higher?
Okay, just so you know, I'm not a computer guy, and you may gather that's why I'm not on the screen. But I'll tell you, well, I guess I am now. But when I talked to Gary, he melted my mind. He said, let me show you something I just did for a guy. And he walked me over and walked me through the process. And by the way, I only got half of what he was saying. But in effect, he said, look, not a lot of people know this, but Google owns the YouTube. And since they like YouTube, since they own it, he said, what I do is I go make little videos, little miniature videos, and then we put them online. And he showed me one day, it was amazing. He went in, made a little video for a guy, and he put it in 10 minutes. He put in the time, he submitted it to Google. 10 minutes later, he was on the first page of Google. And I thought, I've never seen anything. I mean, I've heard this, I've heard legends, but I've never seen it. He says, it's not difficult. He said, in fact, it's kind of a small idea. It's not one of the big ones. But he said, this is a thing we can do. He had another client that he just put on Google, and he got it took him a week to propagate. But once it was on there, 2 different genres was on the first page of Google, 2 different places. So, so all it was he went in and made a YouTube video because Google likes YouTube videos. If you go on any Google for any kind of search, you'll find that often the first ones in line there are videos. And I never could figure out why they cared. Now I know. They own it. They own YouTube.
Good point. Hey, it looks like we've got Ivan back here. Ivan, if you can unmute yourself, we can get you back on here. And we had mentioned you, but you had to step away for a minute. You apparently made a trip to Louisiana, and I'm wondering. I understand there were a couple unusual things that made it easy to sell jobs when you were in Louisiana. Can you talk to us a little bit about that and how it might help others?
Yeah. Thank you, Joe. First of all, I'm really glad to be here with you guys today. I appreciate it. Cliff, it's good to see you again. I love what you guys do for the industry. To answer the question, it was very unusual because not only the United States, but specifically where I was at was the state of Louisiana was in a crisis. I mean, an epic crisis. And I knew I was down there 3 different times, but the first week I did in-house training for the sales staff with the basic things like, cold call and email, pay-per-click, all the things, outbound messaging, inbound messaging. And so got them all prepared on and then talked about objections, things like that. So then I got called back down the second week, and at that time, Louisiana was on the verge of closing. So I got down there on Monday, so we had until Friday to get our message out to as many of the targets as we could. So it was very unusual in that sense because it was mass panic, chaos, crisis, any other kind of negative words you think about. That's what it was. So we had some challenges, but the one thing that we opted to do from day one, and this is, I'm talking about with my meetings with the management, was that we had no time to do a lot of planning other than just to find the targets that we wanted to call on. And that's what we did. And that's how we found our targets, and that's how we achieved some level of success.
So, when you were away, Steve was talking about belly-to-belly selling. I wonder if you could expand on that a little bit.
Oh, he's making fun of my overweight part, I guess. But yeah, I've always enjoyed what I call belly-to-belly, face-to-face. A lot of people aren't comfortable with that. So here I was with 2 new salespeople, trying to teach them probably the most unorthodox way of sales for new people. So that made it tough too. But belly to belly, I just want to get in front of the prospects, whether it was a facilities manager, a director, whatever it happened to be. I wanted to be able to get in and actually see the pain on their face, which was pretty evident, and then to try to use that pain and to help them find a solution. That's really what we're trying to do, is to find a solution for them. In fact, we didn't have time to do a needs analysis on our prospects, which you would normally do when you're doing sales calls, like to find out what their hot buttons are, what they like and dislike about service companies. None of that stuff mattered when we walked in. What mattered is if we could help them with their problems. And coronavirus or COVID-19 was just one of their problems. I mean, a lot of these places that we call on, we talk to schools, we talk to churches, we talk to casinos, we talk to a mall, general manager of a mall, which was purely by accident. But nonetheless, I was looking for sustainable work, not just coronavirus cleanup. So we were kind of like killing two birds with one stone. Does that answer your question, Joe?
Yeah, I'm just wondering too, how do you get past the gatekeepers? I mean, it's you want to go out and you meet with these folks. You go into you can't even get into a school district anymore because of the security issues and so forth. How do you, what kind of tips or tricks can you give people to try and actually get belly to belly? Sometimes it's not as easy. You can't just, I guess you can just walk into a hospital and ask to see the facilities manager, but I don't know how well that would work.
Well, normally it's not an easy thing to do. Again, we took an unorthodox approach, and again, this was probably the harder on the two salespeople that I was training than for myself, because for one reason I live out of state, so I didn't have to worry about ticking anybody off. But actually, we were received openly by everybody, so there was no going through up the different rungs of the ladder like we would normally expect. As soon as we approached the place, for example, a nursing home, walked in and introduced ourselves, asked to speak with the director of nursing or the facility manager, whatever it happened to be, and they'd ask, well, what's the nature of your business? Well, we're in the business of helping businesses stay in business, but we also do coronavirus cleanup and application disinfectant services. That got their attention. And then after that, it was just a matter of sitting down with them and listening to their story. And they all pretty much had the same story. They were wrought with fear. I mean, everybody, they were letting their employees go. Family members of the people living in the nursing homes couldn't come in and visit them. That's very unusual. So they were very open to hearing anything that we had to say. And we were there with more of a servant's heart than pushy salespeople, because I knew that wouldn't work.
Let me throw out a question, a text question from a listener. I think it's a good one. How do you, any one of the three of you can answer on this. What do you guys feel about local TV advertising for small business? High cost, but does it pay to increase the brand recognition?
You want me to go first?
Go ahead.
I'm not a big fan of radio. Once again, I've always built my businesses through relationship building, getting to know influencers. And in fact, a little while I've got to leave for a Rotary meeting, but people that I've always tried to associate with are decision makers anyway. It's easy to get lost in the crowd if you're advertising on TV, especially against the circles of the world who have almost seems like an unlimited budget for television advertising. So I have done some in the past. I've done billboards in the past. I've done I've done just about everything in the past except for pay-per-click. That's the one thing I've never done. Probably should have, looking back at it, but nonetheless, I'm not the biggest fan of television marketing for this. If you really want to build your business really, really fast on the heels of this coronavirus or this pandemic, whatever you want to call it, one of the easiest ways and best ways to do it, and Stephen may have mentioned it while I was out, but is to offer up your services to the community. Offer to clean the disinfected police cars or fire department vehicles. Those type of things can get you a long ways with the community.
That way,
yeah, we don't object to TV time. We actually like it, but we want it for free. One of the companies that he's referring to, there was one out literally doing cleaning police cars and emergency vehicles and applying the antimicrobials. And they went out next to a small highway. One of these companies did, and when he was doing it, it said they had a sign next to the car saying, "For all emergency and first responder vehicles, it's free. For anybody else, it's $20." And so, all the camera crews came out and videoed this thing. So now he's got TV time, but he didn't pay a nickel for it. So we were planning on a lot of publicity type stunts. And there are many of them that we could really make work here. But Ivan left one little thing out. He's told me many times before. One thing that gave him this big advantage down in Louisiana, it was fear, like he said. He could see it in their eyes, and he said there are people literally thankful that a lot of times they don't like agents and adjusters. They don't like contractors coming in and trying to sell first agents and adjusters, then the individual company managers. They don't want to see contractors. This town wanted to see them badly, and so everywhere he went, he was able to make contacts. Maybe we'll swing back to the one where he was in the mall. He went in to get a sandwich, and he'll tell you the rest of the story in a minute. But the second thing that was to his advantage and enabled him to sell so many jobs in 1 week was because nobody else was out there. He was the only game in town, the only person who showed up in front of them and said, "Look, we're here to help, and we have the right equipment, the right training, the right people." And then he stepped back and let them tell him what they wanted to do, and that opened the door for him. But we love TV time, and radio time is splendid. We like every chance we get. We try to find a way to get it free of charge.
Okay. Hey, we're going to stop and thank our sponsors here. We're going to what we call our halftime. And then when we come back, I'd like to go a little more into the book. I think you did a nice job of pulling together a bunch of different, opinions and topics and suggestions from people. And I think there's some very good tips in there. So we'll be back with our guest. We've got, Ivan Turner, Stephen LaVelle, and Kent Riddle. We'll be back in 90 seconds with the second half of our show.
IAQ Radio industry sponsors are Particles Plus Engineers and Manufacturers of feature-rich particle counters and air quality monitoring instrumentation. Learn more at particlesplus.com. Count on us. Healthy Indoors Magazine, a free online digital magazine for industry professionals and consumers. Subscriptions available at healthyindoors.com. And AEML Laboratories, free FedEx shipping, great pricing, same-day results, and never a rush fee. Learn more at AEMLinc.com. Association sponsors are the Indoor Air Quality Association, a multidisciplinary organization dedicated to promoting the exchange of indoor environmental information through education and research. Learn more at IAQA.org. The American Industrial Hygiene Association, AIHA, Healthier Workplaces, a Healthier World. Learn more at AIHA.org. And RIA, the Restoration Industry Association, the granddaddy of the restoration industry. Network with leaders. Learn more at restorationindustry.org. SIRI, the Cleaning Industry Research Institute. See more deeply through science and research. Learn more at CIRIScience.org. That's CIRI Science.org. ACGIH, advancing the careers of professionals working in the environmental health, industrial hygiene, and safety communities. Interested in defining their science at ACGIH.org.
All right, we're back for the second half of our interview. We've got Kent Riddle, Ivan Turner, and Steve LaVelle. Cliff, why don't you go ahead and start off the second half?
What I want to hear is I want to hear some stories. I want to hear one from Ivan. I want to hear one from Kent about. Just tell me a good sales story, Ivan.
Okay, I'll share a story about a ERP program. Like I said, I was looking at sustainability work more than just a one-time coronavirus cleanup. So this was on a Friday, and I was flying out later that day back to Missouri where I live. So we were driving around. All the restaurants, even the fast food restaurants, were closed, even the drive-thrus. There were employees in there, but the drive-thrus were closed. They would just wave us off, say, get away. Everybody was shutting down. So we were going around trying to make a few more calls because I had a couple more nursing homes to hit. And one of my sales trainees, young man, he said maybe the mall is open. Maybe some of the sandwich shops inside the food court are open. But there wasn't a car in the parking lot. And this was a huge mall. So he runs anyway, opens the front door, he's gone about 10 minutes, runs back out, and he says, there's 2 sandwich shops that are open. I thought, well, that's kind of odd. So we went inside there, and that was it, 2 sandwich shops. In the typical mall, you have these food courts where you'll have 20 or 30 different fast food restaurants, and there were only 2 of them open, and there were only tables, a few tables, and they were spread really far apart. And I thought that's kind of odd. So we got us a sandwich, sat down, we were going to plan for the rest of the day. And I was talking to one of the mall employees. She was going around hitting touch points with something that she thought was disinfectant. I don't know what it was, but she thought it was. And she spraying us on the door, and I was walking around. And I asked her, I said, I was just curious. I said, is the mall officially closed down? And she said, yes. She says, completely closed. Of course, you could see all the big corridors. It was dark. And so she was getting ready to cry. She was really sad because, and then I even asked her, I said, are you all right? She said, well, I think I'm going to lose my job. Let everybody else go. We just have a skeleton crew. So I said, just by chance, is the general manager in? And she said, yeah. And I said, would you ask her to come down and talk to me for a minute? So the lady comes down, talks to us. She's the general manager. And I said, I'm just curious how 2 restaurants are able to stay open, but all the stores are closed and all the other restaurants are closed. I said, I'm just inquisitive. How's that work? And she said, well, I got creative because they said we could open restaurants per the square footage we had as long as we had the distancing between the tables. I said, well, that's interesting. Anyway, she asked what we were doing. I said, well, we just happened to do COVID cleanup and apply disinfectant services, but we do much more than that. And she said, do you have a few minutes to talk to me? And I said, sure. So we went back down to her office. It was really funny how this happened, but first question I asked her, I said, I bet you've been inundated with restoration contractors stopping in and wanting you to do business with them. And she says, no, you're the first ones. You're the only ones. And now this has been going on for a while. COVID had been around for a couple months, but they finally just got to the shutdown phase. And I thought that was interesting. And so I said, well, would you be interested in having a locally owned service that's fully capable of handling any type of loss that any mall could possibly have at your beck and call? And she said, well, I would love that. She says, but we're part of a corporation out of San Antonio. They handle all the malls, and they do have a disaster restoration recovery company that does all the malls when there's a big event. And she said, you know what, because you're local, because you actually stopped by just to check on us and see how we're doing, she said, I'll sign the ERP program. So we weren't expecting it. The mall wasn't on my particular list of contacts to hit, but because we stopped by while everybody else, I don't know where the rest of the restoration companies were, but nobody was out there. It was just us. And I don't know if that was stupid or good, but it paid off for us because we had a good message. And like I said, we were doing it from a servant's heart. We weren't trying to push any kind of service on anyone, but we were just letting people know that we had some empathy. We felt for their pain, and that we were there to help them if they needed us.
Great story. What about you, Kent?
You know, I was just thinking about you talking about just a few minutes ago of the TV advertisement. And Stephen was talking about how to get free advertisement with TV. One time I called all of the radio stations in town, all the TV stations, every one of them. And I told them that at 2 o'clock, a crazy guy was going to take 2 55-gallon drums of water and turn them over in a perfectly dry house just to prove that I could dry it out. And gave them the address to the flood house in town, and they all came, and I was on the news on almost every channel that was in town just by flooding out a flood house. So, you know, that story come to my mind because it's just being innovative and creative in your approach. I would say this is the market that is full of opportunity. It's just figuring a creative approach to yourself. That was one that I done.
Interesting. That's a good one. You know, there are a lot of stories in the book. Stephen, and one is from, I want to go back to this Google thing for a minute, because I think there's something to, obviously most people Google quickly to try and look for whomever, whatever service. And you said Katie Harris showed how to get #1 slot on Google without spending 5 figures each month. Tell us a little bit more about that one, Stephen.
Yeah, Katie's she's a consultant, and she's with a company called Spot On Solutions Marketing. And she was in my previous book before we did this one. And we were all wrapping up it's a big book, one of the monster books. We're wrapping it up, and suddenly I was leafing through, I think it was R&R, and I saw an article by her just submitted that same day. And here's what it said. Let's see if we can find here it is. What if your ad showed up above all the other listings when someone did a Google search, including the pay-per-click ads? And what if Google added their trust badge to your company to guarantee consumers that you're a reputable business in your area? And then she showed us how to do it. And she did a splendid job. Basically, there's a thing called Google Trust, and it has different names from depending who's writing the article. But basically, it's an easy thing to do. You go to YouTube, watch a few videos about how to do it. And what her secret was, there's a Google-sponsored advertising and marketing technology, and in effect, you pay them far, far less than the pay-per-clicks, way less than that. But they will advertise you above the pay-per-click ads, above the generic, the organic ads, above everything. You go to the very top of the list, and they have a little box there, and they have the name of your company and the phone number and all that. And it is probably one of the best kept secrets and one of the financially best usable tricks available. And probably trick is not a word that anybody's going to embrace, but it's so clever and it's so easy to do. And the way I learned it was once I read her article and understood what she was doing, then I went to YouTube and watched a handful of videos. Each of them was showing how to do it. It takes about 15 minutes to figure it out. And actually, restoration is one of the very few contractors that they list in their kit. And so I was really enchanted by that one, and I got to say, if you haven't looked into it already, you simply must. It's one of the most inexpensive ways to get to the very top, and I don't mean on the front page. I'm saying the top, above everybody, and it doesn't cost a fortune like regular pay-per-clicks do. By the way, there was one thing, and Kent walked right past this one, but he has a grand story to tell. It just takes a minute, but I'll start my part. One day he called and he said, we're in a slump right now. I don't know what to do. How do we get out of it? And I said, well, all right. Do you have anybody in your entire crew, anybody who works with you or for you, that is friends with like an adjuster or an agent or something? And he said, oh, yeah, there's one guy goes fishing with one of the local adjusters. And I said, okay, that's the one. Get him on the phone, have him call the adjuster, and see if he has any jobs available of any kind, no matter what size. That's the way you break a slump. And then he said, let me think about that, Steve. So then we hung up, and I let him tell the rest of the story because he did it.
Yeah,
yeah, Kent, go ahead.
We talked that afternoon, and it got me to thinking about all of the possibilities with the employees that I had. And so what I've done is I went and got all the employees, and I told them, I said, we're going to do a $100 bounty on restoration jobs. I said, to every single person that brings in a restoration job today, we're going to give them $100. And if you bring in 2, you get $200. And I was absolutely amazed that by the end of the day, with a dry board at the start of the day, I had 6 jobs, and they were all from my employees, every single one of them.
How many people did you have?
Them calling their contacts.
How many people did you have contribute to that? How many people were on your staff at the time? I'm just curious. That's a lot of jobs.
22.
Yeah, that's not bad. So
2 people.
Yeah.
But, you know, I gave out, actually one of the guys sold 2 jobs, but I gave out $600 that day. And we had 6 jobs put on the board from inside the house. And so I thought that was pretty cool.
We did a show, it's going on over a month ago now, with Nir Bashan, and he was talking about creativity and how through creativity you could help your business by kind of thinking a little more creatively. And I think, Steve, that's kind of where you are with some of the comments you've made. You know, you've got to think a little more creatively. And what you've done is you've gone around the world and around the country here and gathered all of these anecdotes and ways for people to make a difference in their business, you know, to learn from others and to, you know, learn from their mistakes, but also from the things they did right. And I think there's a lot of good information in there for people. I think it's also, to me, a little, you've got to do your own work too, because as I was reading through, I realized that you give them a lot of links to other people's information. So you've got to kind of weed through a lot of things before you get what's important for you. And I think that's one of the things you guys help people do. And what I want to do is take a little break. We're going to just go right to our roundup. It only takes 5 seconds to play this music. But during the roundup, I want to talk a little bit about the offer you guys are willing to make here for today's show. John, let's go to roundup. Okay, so we're back, and Cliff, why don't we let you go ahead and take care of this for a moment?
Well, I think we should probably turn it over to Stephen, because I'm not, you know, I suspect that, you know, he can fill us in on what the team decided, but I think it really is a unique and special offer, and it's something that's really, I don't know that it's ever been done before. Stephen, do you think you could fill the audience in?
Yes, I can get started there, but what I'll do is eventually I'll turn it over to Kent as well. Kent sort of prepared something, but you're right. I can lead into it very nicely. First of all, I got to say that this book, we didn't write this book for the big companies, the ones who were taking jobs like a vacuum. We wrote this for people that are in trouble. And that, you notice we shied away from anything that looked like it cost a lot of money this time. Right. All I did was I got all these low-cost, no-cost ideas. Some of them are publicity stunts, I'll admit it, but other ones are ways of getting more jobs, and do it quickly and on a very low budget. We built this for the companies that said they were in trouble, and so in that mindset, Kent sat down and jotted down a few ideas. We have a kind of a bonus for this program today. Kent, can you tell them?
Yes, sure I can. Somebody's going to be a lucky guy because what we're going to do is we're going to take 3 marketing minds, and we're going to laser focus for the next 14 days on some lucky restoration business. And we're going to show them in 14 days that we can make it rain in their business. We're going to implement a lot of the things that you might have seen in the book. We're going to listen to what they're dealing with. We're going to solve some problems for them. And at the end of the day, though, at the end of 14 days, we're going to prove that we can take anybody that's in the restoration business and make it rain in their business and send them jobs from every side, every place. They would not even imagine how many places that they can get jobs from in 14 days. And all we're going to do is we're just going to ask them to write a small little, maybe anything under 100 words, saying about the restoration business, and maybe tell a little bit about the slump that they're in. And we're going to pick out of that slot of people one restoration business to laser focus on and make it rain in their company.
This will
How much
be
does it cost?
all three of you
Sorry.
will do this, and you consult with them by phone and by Zoom meetings and so forth, and then they've got to
Yes.
follow up and perform.
Yes, we're all going to consult with them, and we're going to bring in restoration jobs from places they've never even thought about.
You know, I
Kent,
think. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, but can't you mention how much it costs?
Oh, it's absolutely free.
Right.
We're going to do it absolutely free.
Have you three ever worked on one company before together?
No, this is the first time that we've worked together in one company. We have spent time together and brainstormed together. This is a brand new idea, and it's just to help somebody that is wanting a shot in the arm in their business, and I believe they'll feel the effects of this for the rest of the year. It'll be effects long past the 14 days.
Okay. I think most listeners have my email, joe.hughes@iaqtraining.com. And Cliff, you want to give yours out? Because I think maybe we'll get people to send one of those two emails. Cliff, what do you think?
Yeah, what I was thinking, and I just want to throw this out because we haven't discussed it before, but the blog's going to go out for next week's show, Joe.
Thursday.
And what I'm wondering is if it's okay with you guys, what we'll do is we'll sit down, we'll get all the parameters about what's needed, and we'll settle upon an address that they can write to, and we can put it in the blog, so it'll go out at the end of next week. And this way, we have a lot of people that don't listen to the show live.
We'll hope to bring you guys back in the late summer, early fall. We do our summer break in August. Maybe after our summer break, we'll come back and see how it went. 14 days. You guys are going to go ahead and help some fortunate restoration company out in growing their business and getting more jobs over a 14-day period, and kind of take it from the name of the book, right? How to successfully market your restoration business in 14 days. Hey, I think, was it Kent, while we've got you up on the screen, were you the one that in the book talked about marketing to insurance agents, not adjusters, but to agents? Was that you, or was that maybe
That definitely was me. I also wanted to say that we're going to, everybody that writes a letter, whether you win or whether you don't, you are going to get a free copy of our latest book. And inside of that book is a bunch of different techniques to market your business and to get results. Everything that we have put in there are things that we've done in the past, and that it's already been weeded through. The things that didn't work, we didn't put in the book.
You know, and I didn't mention this, and I want to mention this because I think it's very, I think it's important. You guys decided this book was only going to be, is it what, $25 for people to get an e-copy of the book? Because it's a tough time right now, and you know, you could spend a whole lot more on books to help your business, but you know, they put this together for $25 so that it gets us a good wide distribution, and people can use a lot of these tips that have been collected, not just from the three of you, but from many different people out there with successful restoration businesses. All right, Cliff, why don't you ask any final thoughts, any final questions, and then we're going to wrap it up here in a couple minutes.
No, I think it really is an exciting offer, because I think, as the guys discussed, there's kind of two types of restoration companies. There's some that, you know, have embraced change and are out there making it happen, and there's some other people that, you know, have been doing the same thing for such a long time. You know, they get stuck when doing the same thing doesn't work anymore. And I think that this is, I think this is brilliant, and I think they're going to be able to prove their point.
Excellent. Before we go, let's get last thoughts. First, let's start with you, Stephen. Anything you'd like to add? Anything we missed? I know we kind of had a little rough start there, but things have settled down quite a bit since. Final thoughts.
Well, first thing I'd like to say is thank you, guys. You know, we've had this has been a technologically challenging program, and you guys handled it like masters. You really did a great job. Thank you. The only other thing I can say is, as I said, this book was written for people who can't afford. You know, the book that Cliff was in cost $197. So we decided, okay, this is good. We're going to put it out there inexpensively because companies that are in real trouble can't afford a $197 book. But it's as good as the big ones. But it's shorter. It has dozens and well over 100 ideas in it. And the final thing I'll say about that is, if you're in trouble, this is the place for you to be. We can't help everybody for the contest. We can help one company at a time, but then we'll give you the book and you can read it for yourself. It has all the ideas in it.
Fantastic, Stephen. Thank you. And Kent, any final thoughts before we go?
Well, I did want to tell you about the agents because you did ask about it, and
Yes, I happened to see that part, and I was like, I didn't think of it.
yeah, it's like magic when you go into an agent's office and you give them something that they're not expecting, because they're getting constant visits all the time from restoration companies. And most of them are coming in saying, can I leave these cards? Can I leave these cards? And then you have this guy that goes in there and he says, I don't have any cards. Can you give me your cards? I'm looking for agents' cards. I need to get every card in the office. I need at least 3 or 4 of them. Because what we done was we took and we made baskets that were care baskets. And they weren't in our colors. They didn't have our cards in them, but they had the agent's card. And when we would do the emergency services, we would drop that off and say, hey, you have the greatest agent in your town. There is nobody that's going to take care of you like this guy. What a guy to drop off these care baskets, and inside the care basket would say, because we care, and inside of that little card there would be the agent's card. And that is the type of marketing that we're going to do with companies. It's going to be something that is actually outside of what you've done in the past. And that's my story about the agents.
Well, you also mentioned in the book, I believe, that a lot of people don't think, agents, the first thing they'll tell you is we refer people to our claims department or whatever the case may be. But you find in your experience that they do more than that, really. 85%
of the business is, that is out there is with agents. And the agent has the first call. It's still that way. And they're telling the guy that they don't want to give the job to, that they just turn it over to the claims office. But the guy that is pursuing helping their business, increasing their clients' retention rate, that is looking out real quickly, when we had a class that was called a transference class at my old company, and I told them when the customer gives you a compliment, I don't care how good the compliment is, you transfer that compliment in any way you can to the agent. They say, well, you guys are doing such a great job, and then we would say, well, we appreciate that, but we would have never been able to give you this type of service without the great agent that you had. Your agent has you covered. And we just want you to call your agent and thank them for the great job they're doing. You wouldn't believe how many agents that we received that we didn't have when we opened that program up.
Interesting, Kent. Well, gentlemen, I think we lost Ivan. He seems to have had a couple of little emergencies come up here, which is no problem because he's going to help our winner. I also want to just quickly say thanks to you all for joining us. We had Ivan Turner, Kent Riddle, Stephen LaVelle, talking a little bit about, marketing your restoration company during difficult times. I also want to thank my co-host, the Z-Man, Cliff Zlotnick, at the controls.
Always
John,
fun,
you
Joe.
gotta have faith. Tough day for John. You got to have faith. Hold it off, John. Most importantly, our growing group of loyal listeners. We'll be back, by the way, next week. I've got Stephanie Taylor, Dr. Stephanie M. Taylor. She's an MD out of the Vermont area, I believe it is, and she's going to talk to us a little bit about infectious disease and transmission and how important indoor environmental quality is, and particularly humidity. So we're going to have a great show next week. We'll be back next Friday at noon with the next episode of IAQ Radio Plus.
For IAQ Radio, I'm Spike Reel saying thanks for listening.